Hello and welcome to the Eiffel Mountains. We're at Germany's Grand Prix circuit, the Nurburgring, ready for the second race of the weekend, Formula Renault 3.5. And we are now heading into the second half of the races for the 3.5-litre cars at the Nurburgring. After this, we go to the Hungaroring, to Paul Ricard and to Jerez to round out the championship. Well, under the shadow of Schloss Nurburg in the Eiffel Mountains, just across the border from Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium, one of the greatest racetracks that the planet has ever known, and alongside it, the modern iteration, the German Grand Prix circuit itself, undulating and challenging, and particularly this weekend in terms of weather. Martin Haven, and alongside me in the booth, Tom Gaymore, and we're inside in the warm and the dry, Tom, which has been the place to be this weekend with the fog, the mist, the drizzle and the rain.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't that yesterday, was it? It saw Carlos Sainz Jr. get away very, very quickly. Ollie Rowland with the DRS open managed to hold off Roberto Meri down into turn one with Stockinger, Sorokin and Matthias Lane looking very racy behind.
Well, they started on slick tyres on a dry track, but there were spots of rain in the air right from the beginning, and it was always going to be a question as to whether or not the weather would arrive. Good start from Ollie Rowland, putting him up into second place as compatriot Will Buller fell by the wayside. And Rowland kept Sainz honest early on, didn't he? The gap was always just around a second or so until the Spaniard really started to creep away. His closest title rival, the other Red Bull driver, Pierre Gasly, though, had an utter nightmare of a day.
Yeah, absolutely. He got stuck behind Mavlenov much further down the field, and Mavlenov finally deciding to turn in as they squabbled through the first couple of corners. Then Ollie Rowland suffered mechanical failure with a lap to go, which meant this man romped home in very tricky conditions. The final sector absolutely soaking wet, and all credit to the officials for not red flagging the race.
Yeah, lots of fog and low cloud as it rained on the final lap. Ollie Rowland's car stuck in fourth gear. There was a glitch in the steering wheel mechanism, the electronics there that presumably meant the paddle shifters weren't working, and so the gearbox wasn't stuck, but he couldn't activate it, so he lost his second place and remains in third in the championship. He will likely overhaul Pierre Gasly here today, though, because Gasly has had an even worse time in qualifying. He is 21st on the grid of 22 cars. That is an unmitigated shocker. Only Cameron Twyman, who's in his first ever weekend driving these cars, did not go quicker than Pierre Gasly. And that means for Gasly, Tom, the championship's over. Forget it. Now our challenges are going to be, well, Ollie Rowland and Will Stevens and Roberto Meri, basically, for Carlos Sainz to worry about.
Yeah, I think Gasly would have been focused on Rowland, and with one eye on Carlos Sainz, that's now gone, because, as you say, it's going to be very difficult for him to challenge this man going into the latter stages of this championship fight. He has so much confidence, doesn't he, Carlos Sainz Jr.? But Pierre Gasly, a real head-in-hands moment. I don't know what's going on there at Arden, but they haven't been at the races. It's the nature of the championship. Look at how Dam struggled last time out in Moscow. It's Arden's turn this weekend. Pierre Gasly is definitely the victim.
Well, cars are fired up and getting ready to leave the grid.
The heart of the World Series by Renault with Elf.
Cars on the formation lap on a dry, if overcast, Nürburgring circuit. Roberto Meri on pole position. Carlos Sainz was the quickest man for much in qualifying, but Meri put in 2 laps to go faster, ahead of Oscar Tunio on the grid. Our championship rivals, Ollie Rowland lies in 4th place. Not a great run for Will Stevens to 10th on the grid, and he's right in the danger zone there in the first corner. But you've got to look a long way back down the order for the man who lies 2nd in the points. Keep going, below newcomer Alfonso Chelis. There is Pierre Gasly in 21st place, and that is a real nightmare for him. Cam Twyman, the last man on the grid. Young Brit didn't get the car away safely, had to be fired up again, but I think he's rejoined the field. And sitting beside me, Tom Gaymore. Tom, Difficult conditions yesterday for Cam Twyman. Slippery, slicks, first time in these cars. Bit of a baptism of fire.
Yeah, total baptism of fire. He's got to learn. He's got to be comfortable with the unknown and just understand the results will come. Keep his head down and be confident of that.
So our cars are on the grid. On the right, Roberto Meri. On the left of your picture, Oscar Tunio, the front row. Carlos Sainz Jr., the championship leader, lies third. Ollie Rowland, who will be today probably his closest rival, is in fourth, and away we go. Very slow start from Tunio, and Rowland goes around the outside. Sainz has already got in front. Ollie Rowland with the red nose in the number 4 car has to be very forceful now. He can't afford to get tangled up, but doesn't want to lose ground. And Sainz comes across the front, bounces over Rowland's wheel. Rowland is still in second place. There was a big bunch back of cars running into each other and somebody losing wings.
As well.
Oh, and that is Sorensen again, right in the middle of that. Jafar's on the grass. Sorensen with, is that Stevens? Yes, we'll know.
It's Van Buren in there. So Sorensen was going slowly, and there is certainly what as Matthias Lane in the Stracker racing
in the
car.
Other Stracker car.
And yeah, as soon as I saw, as we see more cars out, that's Beski Visser, but as soon as I saw Carlos Sainz making it 3 abreast, it was a typical Nurburgring incident, wasn't it? Very, very difficult to get 3 cars through the corner there. Carlos will be absolutely devastated with that. He'll feel that maybe Rowland went in too deep defending from Tunio, this man.
Oh, yeah. But Rowland had to go in. He was alongside Tunio. He had to make room for himself to get round the corner, and Sainz was out wide and couldn't maybe see what was going on right beside him or just to his right. As it is, huge getaway for Roberto Meri, but with all the debris down at the first corner, you've got to assume there will be a safety car.
Yeah, too many slow cars then going through turns 2 down to turns 3. Tunio is one of them, Sorensen another, and I think Rowland? That big gaggle of cars have gone. Well, Rowland will have a problem. Yeah, because he had way too much.
is second, Marlon Stockinger third, Sorokin fourth, and Ollie Rowland has not come round. He is shown as 18th after sector 2.
Yeah, well, Rowland was going slowly from that contact with Sainz because his front left will be heavily damaged because that was sizable. Yeah, he'll be just looking a little miffed. He doesn't quite know whose fault that is, maybe looking for a big screen, but certainly Carlos Sainz Jr. ruined what could have been because that was a good start from him.
Well, having written Pierre Gasly off, he is now in 10th, and Sainz and Rowland will not score. There's Beitske Visser, 11th yesterday in qualifying. That's her best qualifying performance. Where did she start on the grid today? Not quite so well up.
No, 10th was her. She was 10th in Moscow. That was her best qualifying performance. Then 11th. Interestingly enough, before we went on air, Martin, we were saying that you know, Pierre Gasly really struggling, and I said, well, listen, the others could crash, and what's happened?
So, ladies and gentlemen, it wasn't me. It was Tom Gaymore. Cam Twyman up to 15th place, so he got through the carnage all right, arriving very, very late at the first corner. Now watch the guys on row 2. Ollie Rowland, car number 4, comes around the outside, the very slow starting Oscar Tunio. Tunio down the inside by the white line, and Tom, Sainz comes over and tries to make the apex. There are already 2 cars wheel to wheel beside him.
Yeah, Sainz has definitely come across. He will have not have known that Rowland was defending from Tunio, and that's the problem. Sainz just thinks it's Rowland up the inside, and he's got a bit of room. Look, Rowland has to stay straight.
Well, Rowland's almost on the curb on the inside. Sainz comes right across. There was room on the outside.
And I think there was a bit of contact between Tunio and Rowland there as well, which meant that Rowland was just fired straight a little bit.
What a getaway from Will Stevens. What happened to him? He only ended up 9th. Now he goes the long way around the outside. Oh, right, so he's got room to take avoiding action, and that's where you need to be, is way out wide.
No, Martin, there was contact between Rowland and Tunio.
Yeah.
So it was contact between Rowland and Tunio before there was contact with Sainz. So Sainz has actually given them enough room. It's the fact that Tunio is up the inside. Rowland has then got nowhere to go. They've touched, and then, as we said yesterday, I talked about this, if you're on the outside, you're a victim, potentially.
Accidents come towards you, but you also give yourself a little bit of room to negotiate. And the photographer's there trying to explain to Sainz what happened. He came down there, you came down there. You know, it was 3 cars all looking for the apex, wasn't it? And that's your problem.
Yeah, well, Sainz had no option. He made a great start, and he was effectively coming from the racing line. He actually gave the cars up the inside room, but the fact that Tunio and Roland were fighting for the same bit of tarmac meant that Roland had nowhere to go. If Sainz wasn't on the outside, the contact between Tunio and Roland would have just sent Roland wide. They would have kissed and made up and carried on. But the fact that then Sainz was there, it's 3 into 1,
yeah.
Just doesn't go. And then the slower cars on the run down to turn 3 meant that, you know, all, well, everything broke loose, didn't it, in terms of cars going everywhere.
So we have lost Bikes-Gewisse there, Carlos Sainz in the first corner, Oscar Tunio is in the pits, and through the pits has come teammate Minot van Buren. Ollie Roland is in the garage, Matthias Lane is out as well, so we now have 16 cars on track. So Roberto Meri, the leader. Now Meri could be on for a second win, however we have got a very long way to go before we get to that. Mathieu Vaxavier in second place, Marlon Stockinger third, neither of them have won yet. Sergei Sorokin a winner in fourth, Zol Amberg in fifth, Pietro Fantin in sixth, and Norman Nato another race winner in seventh. Ahead of Luca Giotto, Will Stevens in ninth, and Pierre Gasly in 10th place. Gasly needs, and as much as I said yesterday at the end of the race, he needs to qualify well today, and he didn't this morning, and he didn't. He needs to make something of this. He's been handed a golden opportunity.
Watch Roland and Meri. So the 2 cars on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see there's contact between the 2. Watch. Watch.
No.
No, I promise you, from that angle you can't see, but
can't see it.
But, and this is what went on further down, that there's cars absolutely everywhere here.
Yo.
Well done, Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, he's been handed the get-out-of-jail-free card, hasn't he? Well, it did look as though Oscar Tunio just touched Ollie Roland and spun him into Sainz.
At the heart of the World Series by Renault with Elf.
Safety car due to come in here at the Nurburgring with Roberto Meri slowing the field down and backing them right up as they come up to the final corner. We've just seen Ollie Roland on the pit wall with the Fortec guys explaining the incident with Oscar Tunio, exactly as you called it, Tom Gaymore. He left him room, Sainz left him room on the outside, and Tunio got it wrong and locked up as the road dropped away underneath him.
Yeah, it was exactly that. Roland just felt aggrieved that Tunio clattered into him, and then he's clattered into Carlos Sainz. Now, Meri has got a good start. Vaxavier's gone with him. Marlon Stockinger is having a Hamlet in third. I just beggars belief. It's a restart. How can you not be up the exhaust of the car in front?
There ought to be some penalty for not being awake at a restart, other than you lose lots of ground. There genuinely ought to be an actually applicable penalty. Further back, Will Buller and Jasman Jafar racing each other as they did in British Formula 3 over a number of years. And for Pierre Gasly, what was a nightmare yesterday has the opportunity, perhaps, to bring him a little closer. We've got a shortened race now, so he's only got 30 minutes to get on with it, to go from 10th to win this and somehow try and haul in the absent Carlos Sainz, or the out of the race Carlos Sainz. But based on the pace he showed yesterday, even that might be too tough a job to get any further up the order past even Will Stevens.
Yeah, expect him to pit early, so this time around the pit stop window will be, or the pit lane will be open. It's laps 4 to 14.
In fact, Gasly was passed at the restart by Luca Giotto, so he's now got Jasman Jafar all over the back of him, and Will Buller left to fight with Alfonso Chelis in the Tech 1 car.
But Gasly, I think, will pit early because he has to roll the dice. He has to be able to push some free air, and what I mean by that is get some clear track. So the leaders will cross the line, Roberto Meri. I expect quite a few of the midfield to roll the dice here. Maybe Gasly will be one of them.
Yeah, he's got nothing to gain by staying where he is and following everybody in. As you say, he's got to try and do something different to make a change. At the moment, he's getting eaten up by Jafar. The leader has completed lap 4. The pit lane is now open for everybody else. And he's not the only one. Down pit lane comes Will Stevens right in front of him.
Yeah, so Will was going to do it as well. teams that ultimately should be higher up but don't have the pace or the setup to do it on track this weekend for whatever reason. Has his engine gone?
No, that's a good race on pit road. Oh, Stevens hasn't moved, and Gasly has, and that's not a really good release, but Will Stevens somehow creeps his way in front of Pierre Gasly as the two other cars were coming in by them. Sorensen, Mavlanov, Matthias Lane is out, of course, so there was only one Stracker car, so Will could pick and choose when he wanted to come in. But oh boy, if that was in Formula One, there'd be yellow penalty flags down everywhere, all over that pit lane.
Yeah, it was difficult, wasn't it? Because you had the cars of Mavlanov and co coming in, and also the release of Gasly. The Arden crew were very, very quick, weren't they? They put the Stracker crew under pressure, and well, we'll have to see a replay of that, because pick the bones out of that. Carlos Sainz Jr. back on the pit wall.
Quick as you like. Roberto Meri leads the race. Now Meri with the fastest race lap, and the opportunity now to run away from Mathieu Vassavillere. We saw Vassavillere's lap times kind of sag yesterday, coming back from injuring his spine in Monaco, and he can't be as fit as he would like to be. He just can't be, because he's not been training, he's not been racing. And again, you know, the second race of the weekend, that's going to be the one that takes it out of him more, because he's already dug into his reserves for yesterday.
Yeah, you talk about physical fitness as well, Martin, mental fitness, you know. What's that accident done to him? Is it in the back of his mind? Well, certainly in the very treacherous wet conditions of this morning's qualifying, it certainly wasn't, because he was very brave and very committed and driving very well in the early stages of this race as well, because Mary's no slouch. We saw he had reasonably good pace in the dry yesterday, and so yeah, the pace at the front of the race is pretty hot. Stockinger and Sorokin trying to hang on to the coattails in third and fourth. Expect these two, or certainly Sorokin, to think about pitting soon. Meri and Vassavillere, they're probably going to go for track position, not be too brave in these initial stages. But Sorokin could be one that, if he certainly wants a podium position, he'll be eyeing up a pit stop soon to try and get ahead of Vassavillere and Stockinger. That will in turn force Vassavillere and Stockinger to maybe cover and pit the lap after. But certainly, I love this element of the strategy that plays into the mid part of these World Series by Renault races.
And the vital thing is it is teaching drivers things that they need to know as well in the future. You know, it's the sort of stuff that you start to learn a little earlier on in life, but when there are pit stops, you can use them to get yourself out of an uncomfortable situation, either with somebody attacking or when you're attacking, like Sorokin is, and not able to get by. Although at the moment, Stockinger has now just dropped it into top gear and is easing away from Sorokin. The Russian in the Fortec car set the fastest lap last time round, but Stockinger is pulling away from him. Fastest first sector for him, fastest second sector for Vassavillere.
Well, so
these guys,
yeah,
they might be on in-laps, they might all be on in-laps, which then completely negates everything else. And part of it is Sorokin needs to be on the radio to Fortec coming, I want to come in, and they're going, no, the other guys are on pit road, wait. Because if you all come in together, then you gain nothing and you lose any chance of an advantage.
Yeah, I thought they'd pull Sorokin in there, but we'll wait.
He's not close enough yet, is he? He's not losing time. There's Norman Nato. Nato in fifth place at the moment. Luca Giotto, Jasman Jafar staying out. Pietro Fantin has been in.
Well, no, he's just dived in.
Buller, yeah.
He was behind Sorokin.
Yeah, so he's in. Will Buller, Zoe Lamberg, pitted last lap. There is Pietro Fantin.
Yeah, very difficult cars to get away or off the line. They've got the pneumatically powered systems, no hydraulics in the gearbox or DRS systems of these World Series by Renault cars, which means all the air for the clutch is stored in a capacitor, and if you hold it in first gear for too long, it just drains all the air out of the capacitor and the car literally cannot get away. You can't get it out of gear either, so it's pretty technical stuff. You have to pick the gear up very, very late in the pit stop, which can be a bit unnerving for the
definitely
drivers.
And for the engineers as well, if the wheels suddenly start spinning when you're dropping the clutch and they don't want you to. Roberto Meri still our race leader. Vassavillere, Stockinger, Sorokin staying out behind him. Norman Nato a little way back in fifth place, 5 seconds behind the lead quartet. And they are ready for him to come in now. We saw the Dams team in the pit roads. Pit window remains open now for a long while. It allows a variety of different strategies. In comes Sergei Sorokin, another fastest second sector for him, so really trying to blow them away with an in-lap, and this is where they roll the dice at Fortec. They know they've got a quick car. Ollie Rowland was very quick in qualifying, Sorokin there or thereabouts, so they've got to give him a chance to use that speed.
Yeah, absolutely. Why not do it a lap ago? We'll have to wait and see if this works out for him, but certainly it's a lap later than I thought it would be.
Yeah.
Wow.
Whoa,
Is that an unsafe release? Because who's that coming into the pits?
That was Giotto coming in and Jafar, and they were 7th and 8th. So, I mean, the problem is with so many cars coming in on a similar strategy. You see Norman Nato coming out behind. You're always going to have to pick your gap, but nobody, I think, had to check up yet. Luca Giotto spending an age in the pit lane right in the back of the shot, and that is a nightmare at Draco for him.
So Fantin has managed to get
in front of Nato,
yeah. Well, he was ahead of Nato anyway, so he's just survived that, but he was quite a long way back.
And there's Will Stevens trying to get by as well. Whoa, chipped out very wide to cut back on Nato. He's got to try and capitalise now, Tom, when Nato is fresh out of the pit lane and not quite up to speed.
Yeah, and Zol Amberg's done well for having a very early stop, so well done to him and the AVF crew there. But yeah, Will Stevens now desperate to find a way past Norman Nato, and this is very important for Gasly as well. He'll be rubbing his hands, hoping that the Brit can fire it up the inside and he can clean up, because once the race or the positions unfold and the heat comes into those rear tyres of that Dams car, it's going to be very difficult for these two to pass Nato. He's a pole winner and a race winner at Monaco. He knows how to keep people behind him.
Well, Monaco helps in the fact that it's almost impossible to overtake anyway, but you're absolutely right. If they get to the end of this lap, then Will Stevens' opportunity will be gone, and he'll be being attacked by Pierre Gasly. Now, they'll pick up 2 places in the overall standings from Alfonso Chalise and Cam Twyman, who are currently 4th and 5th, as in is Marlon Stockinger from 3rd place. Oh, my goodness me. So Lotus 2nd and 3rd with Xavier and Stockinger suddenly returning to form in a wild flurry of competitiveness that we haven't seen for a while. That is a long stop for them. In comes the top 1 car of Alfonso Chalise. And away he goes.
So lots of power, because basically once you're in neutral you can charge the capacitor at 7,000 RPM, so that's why they had it on the limiter.
Sorry Tom, Sorokin going around the outside now, and Zol Amberg trying to cut to the inside. Sorokin almost made that work on Marlon Stockinger, and that would be the battle for 3rd, and now Zol Amberg is having a lunge on the inside, is he? No, Sorokin just keeps him behind. This will be the battle for 3rd place though.
Yeah, so Sorokin's just, instead of attacking the Lotus cars, he's out to pit and defend from Amberg and Fantin, because I thought they were a lap late. They were defensive rather than reactive, and that's why I certainly thought that they would pit it.
We've seen so often a first opportunity pit stop is just about the best strategy there is. It almost always works in your advantage, or going in from the lead as late as humanly possible, and anywhere else in between is a bit of a compromise. And you're right, I think you were right, Sorokin should have come in immediately he had the opportunity.
Yes, we saw Stockinger have that slow pit stop. That's the only reason that Stockinger is backed up into Sorokin.
Well, Sorokin was, you know, he was that distance behind him, half a second, 3/4 of a second behind. The winner here is Zol Amberg, though, because he was nowhere close to them. He's right behind them. He's now, all right, 3rd, 4th, 5th, once we've got through the pit stop cycles. But where did he start on the grid? He was in 8th place on the grid. He was 6th place after the restart. Cam Twyman is currently lying in 3rd place. And again, for him, for Comtech, stay out. Stay out until the very end of the pit stop window. Make them come and catch you. Back him up if needs be. You know, he's not got the pace of the front runners. What was his last lap? A 150. Oh, he's in the pits
he's
now.
In the pits now, yeah.
A 150 in lap compared to 144 of the lead duo. But nevertheless, leave him out there, you know. Wait until everything's quiet. Don't throw the poor guy in when there's 6 other cars going to be coming in behind him when he's trying to rejoin. Let him have a quiet pit stop, build his confidence. Excellent thinking by the Comtech team. Really, yeah, just let him get on with it as much as you can.
Look how close this midfield is, and yeah, that just shows how important strategy is, and if you get it just ever so slightly wrong, it's going to be very, very difficult to really rescue that.
Pierre Gasly at the moment in 9th, and that is where it will be after the pit stops, because there's only 2 cars that haven't stopped, Mary and Vaxavier, 1st and 2nd, and they're not going to come out below 9th place.
Look at Giotto down in 16th.
Yeah, Giotto had he had that nightmare in the pit stop where basically they stopped for a cigarette and a sandwich as well, and you know, to get a Coke and a magazine, and can I have some chocolate as well, Dad? In fact, Cam Twyman is coming back out in front of him. Roberto Meri and Mathieu Vaxavier are both on pit road. So this is the battle for the win. For one of them, it'll be win number 2. For the other, it'll be win number 1. Lots of pressure here.
And this is interesting because Meri is in quite early. I would have thought he'd wait for Vaxavier, but they're obviously looking at where the others are. These two have done a very good job. Yeah, Vaxavier was always going to come in a couple of laps before the window and roll the dice and see if he can leapfrog Meri, but Meri decided to come in as well, so he's obviously got good pace.
Can I just ask you what either of them thought they were doing in the first corner? Meri bounced it over the curbs on the inside, and Vaxavier drifted way over the runoff area on the outside. Hello?
Yeah,
You've just come out of the pits, you're not doing 175 miles an hour. Get round the blooming corner using the road.
Vaxavier carried too much speed in and just elected to use the runoff there.
And what was Meri doing? Bouncing off the curbs on the inside?
Well, he was just being aggressive, but it hasn't hindered the pair yet.
Luckily.
Whether or not the drive shaft's fallen out the drivetrain later on in the race, we'll have to wait and see.
Well, I don't think it's that much of a bounce on the curbs, frankly, but all the same, I mean, there's no need to be ramping it over the curbs at that stage. So 1-2 as they were, and the gap actually very little change. 1.3 coming into the pit lane. Can't imagine it's going to be that much different now either. So both Zeta Corse and Lotus really responded well to the pressure of trying to give their driver at least a fighting chance. Now, the question is, again, we talked about this a couple of minutes ago, either come in first if you need to make up ground on lap 4, or right at the very end if you're the leader and try and build up your advantage as much as you can. Did Zeta Corse bring him in because they saw the Lotus guys coming out for Stockinger? I mean, to cover off that undercut possibility?
No, I think Meri was coming in anyway. Yeah, maybe, you know, that they would have been out in the pit, the Lotus crew, and yeah, they would have gone, okay, we'll race him in the pit lane rather than on the track. But then, track position is key, but yeah, you're absolutely right. I personally thought that Vaxavier would come in, and normally it plays out that Meri's in the next lap as the leader because he doesn't need to pit any time before the pit window closes, as long as you know, just to cover off second place. But yeah, you're right. You know, they probably made a late call.
And I wonder now whether if you were the Lotus team and you saw that Zeta Corse were coming out for Meri, well, no, wave your guy around, get him to stay out for another lap. There's no, you're stuck behind Meri anyway. If you come in behind him, you're going to leave stuck behind him. You know, assuming that there's no major clangers dropped in a pit stop. So it's just a negative thing. It's not a gain. There's no potential for gain. So what's happened to Vaxavier? Where's he gone?
He's gone.
Vaxavier has just dropped like a stone down the order. Where is Mathieu Vaxavier?
We're watching the wrong battle here.
We are. Vaxavier is, well, if we watch this battle, then he's gone. They've all gone by him. So Stockinger is now second, Sirotkin third, Amberg fourth. Now maybe this is a knock-on of him running wide into the first corner. Maybe there was an issue with the car because he has stopped. On board with Pierre Gasly in what is now 8th place. So he is now looking at 3 points from his entire weekend here in the Nurburgring, which will put him 6 ahead of Ollie Rowland. It is now about being the bridesmaid. Mathieu Vaxavier is still in second. The timing screen was having a bit of a nightmare with itself, and in fact he's brought the gap down from 1.3 to 0.8. Why he vanished from the timing screen, I can't tell you, but anyway.
Well, he didn't vanish, he was actually plummeting down it, with showing he'd stopped in the first sector, and now he's back up and running, so there we go. Or I should say the timing screens are back up and running. That
it's now just totally died. Mathieu Vaxivière still seems to be in second. Norman Nato in 7th place, now really trying to push Will Stevens, who's still stuck behind Norman Nato, but this is now an aero-dependent procession, isn't it? We're not going to get an awful lot of change here until somebody makes a mistake in the last few laps.
Difficult to pass at the Nürburgring, and that's what we're seeing. Lotus looking very strong. Both their cars on the podium, what a turnaround that has been for them in 2014. Do we have to look at Richie Stanaway, the super sub, with all his experience? He came in and turned it around, and we're seeing
Vaxivière just plunging down the timing screen again,
in the first sector.
Commentator problems, hashtag.
Exactly that, but you know, do they have to accredit some of this performance gain to Richie Stanaway? He's obviously come in and turned the performance around at Lotus. They've obviously got a good base set up, and they've brought it here to the Nürburgring off the back of his podium last time out.
See, I think that's probably entirely likely. The cynic in me would say they've just found a folder in an old pile of documents that had all the setup sheets for when they were good.
No, I honestly think, you know...
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and we've seen it happen in, you know, from Formula 3000 days, in GP2, you get a random to back of the grid team, you drop in a guy who knows what is a good car, who knows what it feels like, and who knows vaguely what the setup of a good car is, but can drive it and give feedback to an engineer and talk to an engineer, and suddenly, bing, they're right back at the front. And yeah, it's entirely possible that dropping in Stanaway has had that little glow on Lotus, and suddenly he's given them enough feedback that Vaxivière, rookie, and Stockinger haven't been able to give them, that have progressed them.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think Vaxivière is good enough to make the most of those advances that the engineering team and Richie have made. And you know, I put my hat on the fact that, you know, Stanaway's come in and he's sort of crossed the T's and dotted the I's. They obviously had a base setup, but he's gone, no, this is what we need to do. We need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do that. Let's try this, let's try that. And it's just given them a bit more aero grip, a bit more efficiency, and all of a sudden they're back at the races.
Greatly underrated in a driver is the knowledge of what is good. Because it makes so much of a difference. If you sort of understand the way that the things work and so on, then that really helps, because you can kind of try and talk to the engineer in his own language, and he can relate to you. But if you know what a good car feels like, either really comfortable or really edgy or whatever it is that a good 3.5 setup has to feel like, then you can pass that on. And your young drivers might not know what that is. Will Buller and Jazzman Jafar still squabbling, and this is the battle for 9th and 10th.
Either way, what I will say is it doesn't make Richie Stanaway feel too good about himself, sat at home now on the sofa. But
no, I give you that, but again, you know, like somebody like Adam Carroll in GP2, it flags up the fact that if you're struggling and you want your car to look good, phone the Kiwi up, drop him in the car for the last 3 race weekends, and suddenly people are knocking on your door for next year. Now, what teams have we got that haven't got a full strength? You know, someone like Tech 1, getting Stanaway in the car would be a genius move, because them, with their knowledge, and with a driver who's got knowledge as well, suddenly that's going to unlock all that potential. Suddenly that puts them back on people's shopping lists.
Yeah, absolutely. And Richie, if you're watching at home and you do get a drive at the end of the year, you know,
I think he has a sandwich
now.
at the moment. It might be a sandwich and a beer if his phone starts ringing. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. And you know, and to a degree, you know, Comtech bringing in Cam Twyman for hopefully the rest of the season, just to get themselves back in the paddock, back in the flow of things, that's good too. Now, if they can somehow find a way to get a Stanaway in the car as well, then A, Twyman learns loads, and B, Comtech suddenly again start to look like the Comtech that took the championship.
Well, they looked good at the beginning of the year with Marchenko. He had a couple of good results in conditions that were quite tricky, and so it just shows they're a very, very good team. I know Cameron Twyman was incredibly impressed by them and enjoying every moment of being in this World Series by Renault paddock. It's just really...
Mate, at the moment, he's gone from 22nd on the grid to 11th. Now, I know there's been stuff happening, but actually, he's not last. because there's half a dozen cars still running who are behind him who have got much more experience. So Twyman knocking on the door of the top 10 from the last grid position, that's good for his confidence, and that's good for Comtech as well. And again, you know, part of that, get him in for a nice, quiet, no-pressure pit stop and all of that stuff. Let's get the kid built up before we really throw him to the Sharks. Great stuff. Really good from both him and from Comtech.
Yeah, and I'm impressed by Matthew Vaxivière at the moment, because he's keeping Mary honest, and it's going to get physical for him in the last 8 minutes. It's been a reasonably long race, and he's just back from his back injury. You know, he won't have been able to train at full intensity, and so having not been match fit in the car, these cars are incredibly physical to drive. He'll certainly feel it towards the end of this race, but as it stands, he's got a real carrot in front of him, and that's the top step of the podium.
And of course, you've got to remember that the guy in front, Roberto Meri, won race 2 in Moscow just a fortnight ago, while Vaxivière was in the gym watching on the telly or on the sofa or having acupuncture or whatever else, you know, to try and get him back race fit. So yeah, first of all, he's not race fit. Secondly, you know, in his head, there's all those things about, you know, getting back in the car again. I'm sure he's been desperate since, you know, since watching Monaco to do it, but he's doing himself no end of favours mentally by running just a few hundredths of a second off Mary's pace lap after lap.
I just saw him leaning his head on the outside of the cockpit through the Schumacher S, which is flat out in these cars, so he's definitely feeling it, and all credit to him. He's doing an absolutely great job as he disappears from our time screens yet again.
Last lap he was I think I was looking at his lap time, 300 slower only than Roberto Meri, and given that he's in the turbulent air behind Meri, actually that means he's lapping as fast as the leader is, and a big mistake by Sirotkin could cost him the podium. Zoe Lamberg now has a massive opportunity, and that's the smell of opportunity as well as the smell of burnt rubber in Amberg's nostrils, with 7 minutes and 1 lap to go.
And who's got their DRS left? They got 350 seconds allocated for the race, and they're both on it, so they've both got DRS, which is a shame because it cancels the advantage out, doesn't it?
Unfortunately, there is so much DRS, you know, it's like having 20 appeals in cricket, isn't it? It's just endless. You appeal everything from what was in your sandwiches at lunchtime to, you know, a half sniff of a slight opportunity. But what it does give Amberg is the knowledge that Sirotkin is struggling now. In fact, this isn't for third, of course, this is for fourth. Sirotkin is fourth, Amberg fifth, Pietro Fantin in sixth, then a little gap back of, what, almost 2 car lengths to Norman Nato, the yellow and black Dams car in seventh. Then Will Stevens behind, Will Stevens, behind him still.
Vaxivière disappearing off our time screens intermittently every lap is quite confusing.
Not frustrating at all, is it, no? Roberto Meri leads the race by a second from Mathieu Vaxivière, and in third place is Marlon Stockinger. So it's Zeta Course looking for a second race win in Formula Renault 3.5, with Roberto Meri looking for his second victory. There's Beitz-Gewisse in the AVF garage, and Adrian Baez team with Zoe Lamberg here in fifth place. Dropped away again from Sergei Sirotkin, the Russian, recovered after huge lockup here at the NGK chicane, Vidal chicane, whatever it is this week, last lap round, and Amberg not close enough to capitalise. And now you see why, because Sirotkin's actually distanced himself by about a second from Amberg in 1 lap.
Yeah, I think Sirotkin's got the pace on Amberg, and it was just that mistake that dropped him back into the clutches of the AVF man. And well, we talked about yesterday, didn't we, Roberto Meri, and what a win does to a driver's confidence. How often does one win breed to pole position today? A very, very impressive drive in the dry. A good start meant that he kept out of trouble, and Giotto's race goes from
Luca Giotto. No, that's Pietro Fantin. That's the other Draco car.
And that's out of a good position. That's
he was behind Will Stevens, wasn't there? No,
it was Nato behind.
No, so he was in front of Nato, wasn't he? He was behind Zoe Lamberg. That's where he was.
Yes.
So that was, 7th place. It looks like he just rolled to a halt as well, so I wonder whether he had a dodgy steering wheel connector as well. Well, it's one of the problems with these cars, isn't it? With so much highfalutin electronics, it's not hard to See it all packing up. Lead gap is still just a fraction under a second.
Mary's still pushing. He only knows how to push. He's very, very aggressive. If you speak to the drivers, he's one of the most aggressive drivers on the grid in terms of how robust he is on the first lap of his races, and we know how important the first lap is in World Series by Renault, because where you qualify, where you end up in the first lap is normally where you end up.
So it was up at the chicane. He just ran on at the chicane and parked it. That's why the yellow flags are there, and that is why Mary didn't have the DRS open up the hill. I was wondering about that, and I thought, okay, that's interesting. Has he run out of DRS? But you're right. I mean, he is going very quickly at the moment, but he absolutely has to, because Max Xavier again on that lap only 0.3 of a second slower, and I think Max Xavier then probably lifted off a little more for the yellow flags than Roberto Meri did.
It's always the challenge, and quite rightfully so. The officials in World Series by Renault really do clamp down on the yellow flag situation. If you are too quick in a yellow flag zone, you will be penalised, and quite rightfully so. As I said, Marshall's on the track. You cannot take any risks.
And a big lock-up for the Tech 1 car. That's Alfonso Chelis.
No.
Beg your pardon. Yes, it is.
Oh,
no, this is in the garage. That was Chelis.
Yeah. The orange was confusing me.
Yeah, he's in the traditional Tech 1 colours, whereas Marco Sorensen is in the blue and black. That's not even remotely Tech 1-y, is it?
And I just went with ABS, seeing orange. So.
Seeing orange.
I need to clearly get my eyes tested.
Yeah, should have gone to somewhere. Marlon Stockinger still in third place. You talk amongst yourselves. Oh, of course, second place in race 2, and then third place in race 3. So second place in Monza, third in Motorland Aragon. So he's had 2 podium visits already this season, and looking for a third one.
Time ticking down, 1 minute and 54 seconds left on the clock, plus 1 lap. So with a lap time of 1:44, leader will have passed. Mary's across the line, so we're going to have 3 laps.
More. Yeah, this lap plus 1 lap.
Yeah, plus 1 lap.
Yep.
So, yeah.
So that's 2.
Yeah, brilliant. Maths let me down again.
Maths and French then. Thank goodness you're good at sports. And Norman Nato here in 6th position. 5th, 6th, depending on what part of the lap we're in. We're in sector 1, so Xavier is still shown in 2nd place.
No, I meant 3, because I reckon he got across the line ahead of the 1:55.
You
so
might
we could
be right.
have 3. It's going to be right on the brink, isn't it?
Well,
and he can't slow down. He's only got a lead of 1.2 seconds.
No, exactly. And in yesterday's race, what was it? Something like 3 or 4 seconds that Sainz got to the line before the time ran out. And if he'd been 3 or 4 seconds slower, if there'd been a pit stop, then Ollie Rowland's car wouldn't have broken them down until the slowing down lap. So, you know, okay, it's only a few seconds, but yeah, it can make a difference.
It definitely can, and the rain came right at the end of yesterday's race as well. So 1 more lap certainly would have been even more treacherous.
Yeah, if they'd had pit stops and added even another 30 seconds to the race duration from a pit stop, we could have had half the field vanishing off into the undergrowth, couldn't we? That could have been very entertaining for us, but not for the drivers. Well, after the follow my leader of Moscow, it was rather hoping we'd get a little bit more passing going on here in the Nurburgring. Carlos Sainz, been a spectator since the first corner. We head next to Hungary, and again, that's a little bit of a one groove racetrack where it's hard to overtake. And Tom, this is a modern factor where you're so reliant on the aerodynamics on the car for a lot of your speed that being close to somebody robs you of speed, and it makes it hard to overtake if you're slower than the car in front.
Yeah, absolutely. I will go into that, but just to say, Mary, it will be 3 laps because it was 3 or 4 seconds still left on the clock before Mary crossed the line, so he'll have this lap and the last lap. But yeah, going to your point, Martin, the cars are designed in a wind tunnel where the airflow over these wings and through the floor onto the rear wing is perfect. And what I mean by that is it's a clear flow of air. When you have a car in front of you, all the vortices, all the air comes off the back of their car, is heavily distorted it doesn't run fluidly over the front of your car, and the efficiency then, the amount of downforce that you produce is greatly reduced. If you're really close to the car in front, it could be reduced by anything up to 30%. Now, if you turn into the corner and you've got less downforce, the car's just not going to stick. You're not going to be able to carry the speed of the car in front through that corner. It then also chews up your front tyres. You use more lock, you get too much heat scrub through the front tyres. They start to go off as well, so your performance later on in the race is diminished. So it really is a headache for the drivers going and travelling in traffic, because you've got to manage what you're going to do in terms of put them under pressure, but also bear in mind the pace that you're going to need at the end of the race. So lots to think about, and certainly Zeta Course crew looking very nervous. This will be the last lap now.
Not breathing much, are they? Exactly right. Roberto Meri comes across the line at the end of 22 laps for what will be the final time before the checkered flag. You just saw the DRS snap shut as he got down to the braking area at the end of the long front straight. And Mathieu Vazevière just sliding wide, still really aggressive Vazevière in that Lotus, really pushing hard. 1.3 seconds back, and again, last time round, 1:45.39, 1:45.38. So Vazevière just a fraction quicker, 9 thousandths of a second quicker than the race leader. And again, it's not even so much the position, it's how he's kept that pace up. Nothing Meri has done has allowed him to escape Vazevière. He's been right with him the whole time, and that's, again, a huge confidence boost for Vazevière on his first weekend back.
Yeah, I mean, there is an element that Meri is controlling this race, but don't for 1 minute think that if he could have driven away, he would have, you know.
Yeah, because you control it from 4 seconds in front, not 0.8.
Yeah, exactly. That's the reality. We saw it yesterday with Sainz. He just did those 4 purple laps and got the gap to 4 seconds, job done, and backed it off. Meri would have done that if he could have. So Vazevière has kept him honest, but Meri, the consummate professional, he hasn't looked flustered. He's an F3 champion, isn't he? He's a DTM race winner, and you know, he's got plenty of experience. He knows how to drive a race, and now the confidence is growing, and what he's done with Zeta Course is nothing short of incredible. This guy deserves all the plaudits.
Really good job, and the team, you saw them running to the gaps in the pit wall fencing. Here they are, and here he is. Checkered flag is out. Celebration again for Zeta Course and Roberto Meri. Twice in a fortnight they have claimed victory in Formula Renault 3.5. Little rash doing a stopping right in front of Mathieu Vazevière, but nevertheless, Vazevière second, Stockinger third, Sorokin fourth, and Zol Amberg, Norman Nato, Will Stevens, Pierre Gasly eighth, ahead of Jasman Jafar and Will Buller. And that's really the story of Pierre Gasly's season so far. Golden opportunity, open goal, with the top man in the championship, Sainz, off at the side of the road, with the guy who's 3 points behind him in the points, Ollie Rowland, off at the side of the road. And still, all he gets out of it, Pierre Gasly, is 3 points for his entire weekend in Germany. Roberto Meri, though, a remarkable run from pole position to victory with the fastest lap. He gets all the points.
At the heart of the World Series by Renault, with Elf.
Race winner Roberto Meri comes down pit road at the Nurburgring after his second victory in World Series by Renault, which moves him now into second place in the points as the strongest challenger to Carlos Sainz. Up to and including Monaco, Meri had scored 38 points. Since Monaco, 70. And Carlos Sainz, since Monaco, only 83 points scored. So Meri is suddenly exploding in this championship, Tom Gaymore, and look at him.
Yeah, he came into the Zeta Course fold at the beginning of the year. He's got great credentials, huge amount of experience. We talked about what an experienced and talented driver can do to a team and turn around fortunes. That's what he's done. And now for the FIA Formula 3 champion in 2011, he's looking every bit as good as he was then. Carlos Sainz Jr., bit of bad luck, didn't work out for him in Moscow. but Roberto Meri definitely the man of the moment. He's the only other driver now to have won more than one race. He's the only other driver to have had more than one pole position. The other driver who's had more than one win and pole position is obviously Carlos Sainz Jr. But certainly Carlos will have one eye on this Spaniard. And I said it yesterday, great for Spanish motorsport. They really are on a high, and you need that. Fernando Alonso cannot go forever in Formula One, so who's the next?
Meri now 39 points behind with 150 still left in the season. It's doable. The question is, can the Spaniard do it? Clearly delighted, the team celebrating with him, his friends celebrating with him as well. Just outside the top 10, Cam Twyman, 11th place for Comtech on their return to the championship. That's really good news for both parties. And unfortunately for some of our championship front runners, it's been a tough weekend. No points today for Carlos Sainz, none for Ollie Rowland, and only 3 for Pierre Gasly. So 3 of the top 4 didn't score strongly, but Roberto Meri from 4th place to 2nd today. That's a big boost to his hopes and his confidence.
Yeah, and I will have to say, Ollie Rowland's driven very well this weekend. Without bad luck, he'd have no luck at all, because a steering wheel glitch yesterday caused his demise off the podium with a lap to go. And today, I honestly think he was an innocent victim in a racing incident. Yes, they all put their cars there, but I think Tunyo 3 abreast into 1. Tunyo outbraked himself and was going for gold. His first front row start clattered into Ollie Rowland, who in turn clattered into Sainz Jr.
Roberto, congratulations. What a weekend for you. 2nd place yesterday, and a very straightforward victory from pole position today.
Yeah, today I managed to have a good start and to keep the lead through the first part of the race. I tried to give a gap to Baxi, but he was quite close to me, to be honest. It was a bit hard today to go away from him. We had some problems today, I think, with the car. We were not as quick as we want, but actually then when we did the pit stop, the team did a really good job today, because it did a really impressive pit stop, really quick, and it's 2 new guys on the team. Then it was pretty good for them, you know, first race, and to do with a quick pit stop like that, you know. Then yeah, I went in front of him and tried to make a gap to him, but again was hard. But at the end it was a pretty okay to manage that, and yeah, it was fantastic. Even this morning with the wet, I was the quickest. It was pretty good. The weekend is really nice, because at the end of the day, here the winner is the one who collect more points through the weekend, and I am the one who collected more. Then it's pretty nice, you know. I want to dedicate this victory to my sister, because yesterday was her birthday, and yeah, really to dedicate to my sister Sarah.
2nd perfect weekend in a row. You're becoming a very dangerous man at the championship.
Yeah, that's what the target, no? Let's say, yeah, it was pretty okay today. The race was really good, and actually in the last 4 races, I am the one who scored more points by far compared to the others, and yeah, really good. Let's see. Thank you. Let's see.
He's so monosyllabic though, isn't he? Roberto Meri giving us a full 10-minute debrief of the entire race from start to finish, and it was worth it. It went so well for him. Got the start he needed, got away from the trouble behind, as fellow front row starter Oscar Tunyo torpedoed Rowland from behind, who then clattered into Sainz, taking out 2/3 of the top 3 in the field. And from 21st on the grid, Pierre Gasly somehow managed to get himself into the points, and all of the first few corners definitely helped him, Tom Gaynor. There were lots of drivers who've got not much luck on their side this morning.
No, absolutely. And then they had that incident with Minot van Buren, Oscar Tunyo. I think Sorensen was in that as well, Matthias Lane. But yeah, the angle that we saw didn't really show what I was saying. You know, Tunyo really did hit Rowland, and that was the problem. Too much damage on Rowland's car from the contact with Carlos Sainz Jr. on the left front meant that Meri was able just to drive away from everyone, but Matteo Vaxivière back from his back injury in Monaco. His first weekend, Richie Stanaway's been in that seat since then, but Vaxivière drove incredibly well. He had the mental and physical fitness and the pace to keep this man honest.
Yeah, and again, it highlights the fact that Lotus are back. At least they're back this weekend. Their cars in 2nd with rookie Vaxivière and in 3rd with Marlon Stockinger. So a really strong result for them. But Roberto Meri moving up into 2nd place in the championship. Very impressive run of form he has had since Monaco, and he could become a real thorn in the side for Carlos Sainz. Twitter, Neil Hudson suggesting maybe a DTM career awaits him in the future. I think perhaps he'll He won't want to go back to DTM now. He's got back to single-seaters in his winning ways. Sergei Sorokin nearly gave away 4th place, but hung on in the end. And the Fortec team with Ollie Rowland, very unfortunate yesterday with that glitch on Rowland's car that robbed him of 2nd. Unfortunate that he got tangled up with Tunio at the start, because he should have been on the podium in both races, but it was not to be. Roberto Meri made the best of every opportunity, and despite the new boys on the pit stop crew, great stop to win it. Championship is still led by Carlos Sainz, but he has not scored today, and Roberto Meri is now up to 2nd place. Pierre Gasly creeps a few more points ahead of Ollie Rowland in 3rd. Rowland now down to 4th position, but since Monaco, it has been Roberto Meri who has been the big winner, which is not to say that he didn't start the season well. He was 2nd in the season opener at Monza, so the threat was always there, and that means Zeta Corsa creeping up the order ahead of Arden after a difficult weekend for Arden Motorsport this weekend.
Yeah, 3